Welcome to the Abe Podcast. This is your host, Talib Karim, and also the CEO for Abe. We are a platform that is established to help connect world-class both lawyers and other professionals to a network of over 30,000 other high-income and professional workers from across the country who are all trying their best to both survive and even thrive in this challenging world. I'm excited today about the guest that we have, who's going to give you some firsthand advice on how you can thrive and be well, even if you're spending hours of remote work or back into the workplace, and how to keep yourself safe. Someone who knows firsthand about the challenges that the pandemic brings as a public health expert and also a yoga instructor. And that is none other than Courtney Turner. Before I bring her on, I want to just remind you that if you have not yet subscribed to this program, please hit that button down below to subscribe. And also, if you like the content, hit that like signal and share it with your friends and family. We are really excited about that. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put your questions into the comment box, and we can either answer your question, or if we don't answer your question and you are subscribed, we can answer it after the event and you can get that response that you need. We're really excited now for our guest, and let us bring her on without any further ado. Courtney Turner. How are you, Courtney?
I'm doing great. How are you, Talib?
Wonderful. You're looking marvelous there. And where are you based right now?
In Columbia, Maryland.
Columbia, Maryland. Right now. Well, we're very glad to be with you. And we're really glad to be with all of our viewers. Again, Courtney, if I was reading a book and that book was called The Life of Courtney Turner, can you tell me what would that book consist of? Let's say the pages that go from your high school to your college career. Tell me if you could summarize that. What would the story be?
From high school to my college career, I think it would be the double Gemini that's a Black gymnast. I think that's what it would be. So I think my career and who I am at that point in my life, or the story of my life, is definitely, duality. The duality of being in a very restrictive sport, not just, being a Black gymnast in the sport, but being very restrictive as is, and then having to find some type of balance outside of that, dealing with body perception within a sport, and then stepping outside of that and having to deal with body perception just as a normal girl. And I think between high school and college, that's where I actually stepped into my spiritual path. I took one of my first religion philosophy classes in high school, and that continued all the way through college and even today. So it is, I would say that time period of my life was a young teen who had traveled internationally, had trained internationally in China with their national team, and was really wrestling with, who is this person? What is she about? How do I express myself in all of my facets? And how do I present myself in a world where, there are rules, but I didn't necessarily feel that I fit in them. So I think, the title of Double Gemini, who's a Black gymnast, is probably pretty accurate for that period of time in my life.
Awesome. And so you are a Black gymnast. Mm-hmm. You've kind of like really zoomed through what it means to be a Black gymnast with all of the challenges that mm-hmm. exist. What was life like? I have an 8-year-old mm-hmm. who has recently taken an intro gymnastics class at one of the local gymnastics studios. And she's excited about the cartwheels and the other things that are taking place at that space. especially during COVID. What would you say to those parents out there who have similar experiences or are similar daughters who
Mhm.
are eager about gymnastics? What would you share from your experience, and what from there shaped your career as both a public health expert and now a yoga instructor?
Sure. That's a really good question. And I recently had communicated that very thing on my private Instagram page not too long ago. Um, I had posted a picture of myself in competition. It's one of my favorite pictures. And I said, this is one of my favorite pictures. And, I loved competing on floor because it was on floor exercise. And I said, but, the trauma of being a Black girl in the sport, particularly in the 90s, and those who came before me was even tougher. Um, what I would say to parents is what I said in that post is that if you are a parent of color in particular, make sure you surround and cement your child in mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well being of your community. It is needed. If my parents had not done that, if my grandparents had not been anchors for me, and I was born with 5 grandparents, including a biological great grandmother, when you have that insulet of family, that healthy identity of your community and your culture, and you relate to people outside of a sport that traditionally is not welcoming and equal to those that don't meet a certain body type that is literally written in the code of points, it can be really tough on that girl. And I think parents need to be aware. And I think Simone Biles and Dominique Dawes have also said that their parents did the same thing. So that would be my number one advice is cement her and surround her or him in the sport with a healthy Black identity or minority identity, whatever they are, and let them know that they matter, that they don't have to fit in a box, and that who they are is okay. And even with their faults in the sport or outside the sport, they're good to go. In terms of my college career, how that went forward, I think the biggest theme when I was really thinking about this earlier today is representation. College, it was no easier. There were very few of us in the sport at the time. And when I mean very few, if you got to Division 1A in particular, you were like me, a long-term level 10 who chose not to go elite, or you went elite. And so we all knew each other. It was very few. And the thing is that representation mattered. And I had little younger Black gymnasts who were about your daughter's age, whose parents would bring them to every home meet I had all 4 years. And the reason why they did it is because their mother said, you matter. You being out there mattered. And so no matter how difficult it was for me in college, and it was not easy, it was not easy. There was a time where I was ready to leave my university because of almost having a nervous breakdown with what I was enduring. I remembered those little faces that came faithfully every home meet that did not conflict with their competitive schedule to just be there to support me. And, that mattered all the way through to when I received the Female Athlete of the Year award my senior year, even when I received the Hall of Fame award. My Black face mattered. And so parents should also tell their daughters that, their sons that your face matters. There's going to be another kid that will see you. And even if you don't think you matter, you do. So that really shaped who I was, and shaped the experience in college. And at that time, you have to declare your major by second semester, sophomore year by NCAA rules. And if you don't, you're ineligible as a junior. So luckily, I have found public health. I found a major that actually fit who I was as a person, the ideals that my parents raised me with, which is social justice. And it charged me forward, number one, to continue the social justice for myself in a sport and environment that at times could be a little uncomfortable. But it also gave me the outlet to know that, my face or who I am mattered outside of sports. And so my career as a public health person may have been born out of a time when I was young, where I found my voice of wanting to be that strong advocate, but at the same time, they were interweaving and intersecting, because as a gymnast, I was trying to find my voice and I had to advocate for myself. And then it just transferred really nicely into public health, moving forward with that. And as a yoga instructor, the same thing. When I left athletics altogether, I suffered from what's called the female Olympic triad. So what that means is some female athletes, their bodies are overexerted and they're overtrained. And so there is a limited amount of body fat at times, which offsets their hormones. So their menstrual cycles can be very, very, very irregular. And I knew that I potentially may wanted to be a mother one day. So I started going to see doctors, and they were giving me these very interesting prescriptions. Let's just put it that way. And I said no. My body said no. My mind said no. My heart said no. And so it was through yoga that I actually came to my inner physician. And the inner physician is not your inner intuition. It's actually the inner doctor. So it's like a compliment to your intuition. So your intuition will say, ooh, something's wrong. And your doctor will say, this is what's wrong. And so yoga brought me back to my body, because for so long I was outside of my body because it was subjectively judged for all the time. And through that process, I was able to unfold the layers as to what caused the imbalance of the female Olympic triad. And yoga allowed me to try to come back to that balance. And then when it was time for me to be a yoga teacher, I was actually coming off of another health crisis. It was literally a near-death experience from working, living overseas for a short stint. And the same thing happened. Yoga told me, and my inner physician said, you can't do vinyasa right now. You're too sick, you're too weak. You have to find another yoga, because yoga is how you're going to live. Yoga is how you're actually going to survive this health crisis. And that's how I found Bikram. I just happened to walk into Bikram Yoga Columbia, which is what it was called at the time. Now it's BYC 26. And you take it from there. And that's how, that intuition that said vinyasa is not going to work, Bikram will probably be better. And within 6 months, my body had almost come back to some semblance of a physical balance, even though I had a lot of inner mental, emotional, and psychological work to do.
Wow, it's interesting that you share your experience about walking into a Bikram studio, because mine was similar. I had not really understood much about yoga. A really beautiful friend and mentor and brother had introduced me to yoga, Idris Diaz. And he was a former martial arts master, I think a second degree black belt in Aikido. And he was like, yeah, come into this yoga studio with me. And I was like, yoga, that's for girls. You know what I mean? And so, but it was like, no, brother, you'll like it, And so I went in there, and I didn't understand that studio, which was Down Dog Studio, which is where he both enjoyed and ultimately became certified as an instructor through, was a different type of yoga than the yoga at the Bikram Yoga of Tacoma Park, where I ultimately landed into after he went overseas as a foreign service worker and professional. And so it struck me. I was like, wow, there's something different about this, it not just the vinyasas or the moves, not the vinyasas, but not just the moves themselves, which are called, what are they called?
Asanas.
Asanas, thank you. Not just the asanas, but the space itself. It was an entirely different experience, and I really enjoyed it. And I kept coming, and ultimately, now it's been 10 years now, and I'm still at it. So with that in mind, how has yoga shaped your career and your work as a public health expert? And what are some of the lessons that you've learned as a public health expert in the pandemic, along with your work as a yoga instructor?
Yeah. So, when yoga came to me, I was right out of graduate school, young 20-something, and I was, sometimes in order to learn public health, you have to be on the ground, see, feel, smell it, the whole 9 yards, and I was my own test subject. And at the time when I was doing yoga, I was actually coaching competitive gymnastics. So what yoga did for me in the beginning, one of the things that I developed out of a trauma response, which is actually quite common within the Black community, is like the superhero, the super Kate, the strong Black woman, the docile Black man. And yoga said, no, you need to take this shell off. You need to take this, you have a whole armor on. You got to take it off. So what did that mean public health wise? It meant that I had to address a mental health issue that was going on, some suppressed emotional things that was going on. So when I'm working in policy, or at that time, even working with my gymnasts and looking at the policies of the gym and the gymnastics environment, it's like, no, this is creating a mental health issue. This is a public health issue. You're like, you can't do this to kids. And it was my reflection of, I was repeating what I was doing, what had been done to me, to my athletes, and yoga presented that mirror. At the same time, when I was working full time, I was working in Medicare policy for Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And, I was in there as I became stronger in my own advocacy for my own mental health and welfare. I became even louder in my job about the voices of those who are underserved, which is also a part of my career that just tends to be what I gravitate towards. And so, we have policies in place in this country where many people it impacts, and their voices and faces were never even considered when it was written, like at all. And our older adults are a prime example of that. And so yoga taught me to stand in the truth of what my internal passion and wisdom is. And if that wisdom meant rewriting a paper or a policy that came across my desk because it eliminated the face of that person, that's exactly what I did. Later on, when I was a Medicare advocate for Medicare beneficiaries on behalf of the Medicare Beneficiary Ombudsman, I was one of the policy advisors to the 3 external ombudsmen. Same thing. Public health needs to have a face. The policies need to have a face. That's why it's called public, the face, and health. The interventions won't work if you don't add the people to it. And so when we think about the pandemic and we think about the policies that have been in place, public health wise, it was for those of us in the field of public health. Last year, we were sitting kind of like watching a movie, a disastrous movie with our popcorn. And we were like, but we told you this 10, 15, 20 years ago. Those who are older than me in the field were saying it probably 30, 40 years ago. These policies are not equating equally to the ground. They are made from people who sit in a very privileged position, most of whom don't look, live, eat, breathe, sleep, or spend money like the people these policies impact. And that was very, very obvious last year when COVID came. So, social determinants of health became, flash, health equity became flash. But when you're thinking about a global pandemic, it matters. It matters when the majority of the people being impacted by this pandemic are brown people, the global majority. It matters when the majority of these people are low income. It matters that the majority of these people or those populations are high risk in general for health outcomes because they lack access to resources to even live a healthy lifestyle. So when the policies are not supporting someone to have equitable and fair access to live a lifestyle that's even to everyone else, that's, yogic wise, that is not just unfair, but there's a level of poor reciprocity there.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that you are a model, especially from your work as a gymnast, that people are watching you. My daughter just told me that she was watching us at Fatima. You are, just let you know that Courtney is a wonderful example. And in fact, Fatima is a fellow yoga practitioner and student as well. So you are certainly continuing to be a model. And when you talk about the way in which health inequities have impacted our people, particularly people of color, and the elderly especially, what are some of the things that you bring to your class that, dare I say, serve as a remedy for some of the morbidities that bring about the onset um, of things relating to the COVID
Yeah.
virus, if you will.
Yeah, I think one of the things just in general with the COVID pandemic is this huge expose, like this huge exposure of sitting disease. And for those who are not aware what sitting disease is that over the last 30 to 40 years, Americans in particular are sitting more and we're active less. And that even includes those people like myself or yourself who have a healthy workout regimen daily or weekly. And with sitting, in terms of any type of, Eastern medicine, sitting equals stagnation. And stagnation means that the body's energy systems, the body's flow is not moving. What does that turn into? Over time, compulsive sitting, which is now being equated to the new smoking, is now turning into, it is a public health epidemic. It's a huge issue, but it's also exorbiting diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, heart attacks, which run even greater within the minority community, especially the Black community. And so my classes in general focus on bringing the body back into alignment to, number one, connecting with the vibrations of the earth. So, I'm a yoga astrologer, so I'm interested in what's going on in the atmosphere, but only to know what's going to charge that person's body so they can come closer into alignment with their inner physician. And then when they become closer to the alignment of their inner physician, they can have a deeper grasp over what do they need. They can walk a little bit deeper into a more holistic realm. So it could be eating differently, but most importantly, moving differently. So I actually make the effort in classes to design the class to enforce and reinforce that movement is healing. That movement brings about charge, chi, prana. It increases your life force. And if you have more life force, if you have more pranayam, more breath, you actually have more life. And so, especially if there's someone of color in my class, the first thing I want to do is honor that their body has a lot of trauma, inherited and lived. So I want to make sure that the class is somatic to their nervous system. I want to make sure that they feel come back easy into their body, and then work with them gently, especially if my classes have more people of color. I work with them gently to bring them into movement so it's not overstimulating to the point where they don't want to come back. So I'm very conscious and aware in my classes that, everyone comes in their bodies in a different place, but I out of my own personal experience working with my own elderly family, working with other elderly adults, and just those who are not elderly, they're under, well under 60, 50. We carry stress. We carry the trauma of stress, particularly post-traumatic stress syndrome that may be in our bodies. And so I take extra care to be mindful of that, to help with their healing every time they come into my class.
And I understand you're going to be offering a special class, speaking of which, that will incorporate some of the unique approaches to yoga that you offer to students. Can you tell me a little bit about that class or those classes, that class that is going to be taking place this weekend, I believe, at a special place, none other than the Howard University School of Law, in front of their law library that I understand has recently been named or renamed in honor of Vernon Jordan, a former Howard Law alumnus. And this class, I understand, is going to be dedicated to another Howard Law alum who recently passed, and someone who was just mentioned a moment ago, Idris Diaz. Can you share a little bit about what people can expect from that class?
Yeah. So it was an honor to be asked to teach the class. I'm truly deeply honored. So what are people going to expect from this class? I am creating this class. It's a memorial to him. It's a memorial of him. And, I've read his biography. I've read a couple of his obituaries to get a sense of who he was, because I didn't have the pleasure of meeting him. And so that class will be in alignment with many traditions of, our community, where, you know, you walk into our services of memorials and it says sunrise and sunset. And so he was a Leo at birth, and he transitioned under the sign of Cancer. And so it actually falls in the line kind of with the class that I have that will be starting on the 21st, the sun and the moon. He was embodiment of the sun, and he passed away during the embodiment of the moon. So the majority of the class will have a lot of fire energy, a lot of fire breath, pranayam, strong standing postures, strong flow and movement of sun salutations. And then because he was a yin instructor, and yin is actually more aligned with the moon. So the first half, which if his sun salutation aligns with the sun, and yin aligns with the moon, it will be a little cooler. There will be cooling breaths. There will be more longer held postures, slower postures, more stretching, more introversion, as well as guided meditation at the end to bring people all the way down into their body and then gently bring them back out. So that's what this class this weekend will be. It will be a memorial of him. It'll be a memorial of the rise of his energy, his sun energy, and also in encapsulating the moon energy that beautifully allowed him to transition to a better place.
You know, recently, as a result of Idris's passing, I was doing some reading and reflection from the Islamic lessons on the passing, as you mentioned, and what struck me is how it is said that the Almighty removes our soul at every evening when we sleep, and then returns the souls of some and keeps the souls of others. And how, when our souls are removed, you may not even know, your body is totally disconnected. And so therefore, if somebody, pinches you, even like, for example, in surgery, for example, you're put to sleep. And so that allows the surgeons to actually do some things that are really, really painful to the body, but you don't experience that pain because, your body and your soul are disconnected. And so I really appreciate your reflection about the transitionings of souls. And I understand that you are involved with, helping people in their transitions. And so you bring a philosophy and again, the just so folks who know, the link for that class is both displayed on the screen and also it's in the comment section. That class is going to be scheduled for 11 a.m. at the Howard Law School. And you have both a opportunity to get some really good working out in or workout in, exercise in, and then to learn more about Idris. And for those of us who were touched by him, and again, I know about yoga really through Idris, bringing me to a yoga studio. For those of you like myself who were affected by Idris, you can have a great opportunity to reflect on him and how he touched you, or even learn more about him if you were not that familiar with his work. A former diplomat, corporate lawyer, and again, practitioner, both yoga and Aikido, and really also a world-class journalist before even going to law school. So with that in mind, in this beautiful setting that you are going to be providing yoga at, what do you give to people who want to sign up? What should they bring with them to that class? Will it be outdoors or indoors? I guess somewhat outdoors, since we said it was going to be in the courtyard. But will they be required to wear masks, or what is the format, if you will, for that particular experience?
Sure. It will be outdoors if it's in the courtyard, but we also have a virtual experience as well for those who are not comfortable coming outdoors. So when you sign up, there will be an option for virtual, and we have our Zoom link, and we would love to commune with you even through the virtual format. For those who are coming in person, we ask for you to bring your yoga mat. If you have yoga blocks, bring them. If you want to bring a specific towel, a couple of towels for any of the yin postures, or just to have more padding underneath your mat or on your mat, by all means, please bring it, and also be weather appropriate. We don't anticipate any rain, and we will make provisions if that does happen. But just in case, don't forget an umbrella or something. If it happens to rain and we may have to end class, we want you to get home dry and safe.
And a beautiful thing that I understand is going to be taking place right afterwards, and that is the next Tuesday, you're going to be launching a weekly yoga course online. Tell me a little bit about what people can expect from that experience.
That experience, it will be different than Saturday's experience, because Saturday's experience is specifically the vibration and the energy of a person that we are memorializing. But on September 21st, I will start teaching through the Abe platform, a 60-minute class that will be similarly in alignment as Intakita, so sun and moon. That's what it means in Mayan, the Mayan cosmology. And essentially, I will teach the class according to where we are that day in the earth. How does the earth feel that day? And so the class will definitely have that feel of pranayama. It will open with pranayama. It will open with slight meditation, and then there will be a flow. Depending if the day is more sun-based, it will have more sun salutation. If it's moon-based, it will have more of a moon salutation. And of course, at the end, there's always going to be slow flow, slow holds, and there will also be a guided meditation leading each practitioner out. But it will always be a journey to the inner physician, your inner medicine person, so that you can come into more alignment with how you want to live your lifestyle, how you want to live a healthy life, no matter how you define that.
And what exactly inspired you to come up with that particular style of providing yoga online? I mean, I know that especially for people who are back in the workplace, a lot of them are feeling pretty uncomfortable being in those settings. What will your class offer them, or for those people who are still working remotely? What are some basic things that people, be it those who attend your class or those who are looking at the possibility of attending your class, what are some of the things you might advise them that they can do to kind of break up their day, if you will, and keep themselves healthy?
Sure. I was just recently trained in a modality called Genius Breaks. So, I mean, if you can't, coming to my yoga class, you will get I always lay a foundation that movement is what's best in order for you to continue to heal. And I'm coming from a place of, I did it myself, a decade ago when I was so sick that just crawling to get to the restroom was an absolute effort. But I knew if I moved, I could make it. And so in my classes, it's always a deep reflection. And I always push you to your edge gently, but with love, letting you know that you can move and go beyond your edge of what you thought you could do. And each time you get beyond that edge, you can go a little bit more. And that will eventually transition into wanting to live healthier. In terms of what someone can do throughout the day, in terms of Genius Breaks, you can take breaks throughout the day, like literally take 5 2-minute breaks throughout the day and actually take some of the poses that you learn in my class, which they are transferable to working from your desk and doing a yoga posture from your desk. And we can go over that in class. I will make them transferable, but you can spend 2 minutes 4 or 5 times a day, which equals 10 minutes in that day, moving all of the major joints of your body, moving your elbows and knees that go in 2 directions, your spine that goes in 4 directions, your hips that go in 6 directions, and your shoulders that go in 8 directions. And when you get your body moving and flowing, your chi is moving. You have more energy. You have more effort to do things. You're not as sedentary, not even just at the job, but just in your life. So my yoga classes are transferable, many parts of them, to being able to do them from your desk sitting in a chair. And I do go over those types of things in my class.
So this has been an amazing conversation, and it's like I definitely have to have you back over. So really get ready for that. Okay. But let me ask you a couple of questions as we conclude. One, people don't really understand, and they think that, someone who's a public health expert like yourself and yoga instructor, that they're so far removed that they don't have ordinary lives. Let's see if we can demystify that a bit. Why don't you tell me what your day was like, let's say yesterday?
I would say my day yesterday was a rather a little boring, but I mean that's a normal life. I'm no different than anyone else. I just tend to put more yoga in my day, but my day involved working, like going to work. I still work from home. It involved, okay, I need to get up and move. I also help take care of my elderly parents. And anyone who is a caretaker for your parents, that's not easy. That is not easy all day. It's not easy. And so my day yesterday was a quiet day because nothing too serious happened with my parents, which is always a concern. And my work day went without stress, and I was able to get some yoga in, and I was able to go outside and enjoy some nature and talk to some friends on the phone and all that stuff, and communicate with my nieces who are very much so teenagers and, into the whole social media bit. So, I have a normal day. I have a normal life. I just happen to, over a long period of time of healing, have added in yoga as a part of my everyday living.
And you talk about your everyday living. You talk about the work that you have and you want to make on people, particularly those who I understand, like you, are caring for their parents and their elderly relatives. What would you either advise to a 17-year-old Courtney, or what parting advice in terms of how you want to make an impact in the world? What are some of the thoughts you might reflect upon a 17-year-old Courtney?
What would I say to my 17-year-old self? Keep doing you. That's literally what I would tell her. I would tell that 17-year-old, and I have told teenagers recently in the last few years, as well as some young adults, you have a vision. Just because your vision doesn't fit into a box doesn't mean that it's wrong. Just because you don't fit somewhere doesn't mean that you don't fit somewhere else. It's okay to say no when it feels wrong. It's okay to say yes when everyone else is saying no, because your yes that's probably a part of your path. And most importantly, I would tell them, if a door opens and you have the curiosity, walk through the door. Take the opportunity. You won't regret it.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation with you, Courtney. Honestly, you and your energy and your philosophy are all so beautiful, and I definitely would love to just continue this conversation. Reminds me of my days at Howard. We would spend the entire night in some of the dorms, just as we call building, having building sessions. Throwing one philosophy and bouncing off another one, and just really engaging with each other. That's before we had this gray hair and all the responsibilities come along with it. So I won't take up any more of your time, but I'm really excited about the phenomenal yoga experience. I might even call it class, but experience that you have for folks scheduled for this weekend at the Howard Law School library, named in honor of Vernon Jordan, the Vernon Jordan Law Library Courtyard. And then again, and for those who are outside of the area and need to participate virtually, there's a virtual option. And then for those who want to continue to benefit from you, they can again log on to the Abe Yoga platform and sign up for your classes. I understand that you have even some pretty, it's not a Walmart experience, that's for sure, but you are, I understand, offering some specials for people who really want to check it out and get involved. Is that true?
Yes. So this weekend, we suggest a donation of $19. So whatever you can donate, we greatly appreciate it. And when I begin teaching on the 21st, the drop-ins are 19. But there are specials for new students to incentivize you, to keep going, because yoga is not just a one deal thing. It's a long-term investment. So I have 4 class packages and 8 class packages for 65 and 125 respectively. But when you're a new student, you sign up with a 4 class pass, you will get a 5th class for additional. And with the 8 class pass, you get 2 additional classes. So that's the incentive.
Well, there you go. You can't beat that. I am really excited about this conversation, and I look forward to seeing you in person on Saturday, and also really enjoying your classes on a weekly basis. I think that the timing for your class, which I understand is at what time of the day is it on Tuesday?
I believe it's 5 or 5:30. I think it's 5:30.
Okay, right. I mean, that's the perfect time because people are just leaving the office or, getting out of their seats if they're at home. And I think it's an opportunity to get that, kind of shake off that energy of work and transition to some, rest at home. And so I think your class will be perfect for that transition. I'm really excited. Thanks so much, Courtney, for joining us. And we're looking forward to seeing you again.
All right. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to returning.
Excellent. Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Again, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so. If you have not yet liked this content, please do so. If you haven't shared the content, please do so. And if you would like to check out the yoga classes that Courtney is going to be offering, go and visit abeyoga.com. That's ABE yoga.com. And also sign up for the special class this weekend in tribute to our brother, our friend, our beautiful colleague who was a journalist, a martial arts expert, a yoga student and yoga teacher, a servant for the Foreign Service of the United States government, both in the State Department and USAID, and that's none other than Idris Diaz. We really are looking forward to honoring him and then enjoying the yoga experience that Courtney is going to be offering both on Saturday as well as in the future weeks to come. This has been Talib Karim with Abe. And of course, if you have any legal issues that you would like to get help from a world-class lawyer to discuss those problems, don't hesitate to go to abe.legal to do so. We're looking forward to many more conversations in the weeks to come. And until that time, I bid you adieu, good night, or good morning, whenever time you're checking out this podcast. Take care.